Yeah, there he is. Like he was trying to
Okay,
pass towards
you
you.
know the drill. Who, what, where, why, how, banana.
In my last review, I covered a mod that was pretty much hated in the Fallout New Vegas modding community. Honest Hearts Reborn. The video did a lot better than I was hoping, and I'm glad it did because it certainly opened the door to do more mod reviews like that. It also brought to my attention that there are a lot of mods out there that are even more hated. The name of one particular mod seemed to drop a lot more often than not. Fallout the Frontier. But I'm not going to be talking about that mod today. There already exist plenty of reviews on it on YouTube, and there's really not too much I could add. I'm not saying I won't make a video on it, but I probably won't be reviewing it. However, there was another mod that got quite a few mentions as well. A mod that's been cited to absolutely destroy your New Vegas save game with many of the quests that are forced upon you. A mod, incidentally, that was created by one of the original writers for the NCR questline of Fallout the Frontier. And that mod is trash. War trash. Oh god, that was cringe, I'm sorry. Judging by the comments I got on the last review, there are a lot of you out there who really hate Fallout the Frontier. And in many instances, I can understand why people dislike it, and I can agree with a lot of the sentiments, but there are a few critiques that are a bit overblown. Full disclosure, though. I did work on Fallout the Frontier, specifically in the last 4 years of its development. I did a few side quests, and made a few towns, and I also appear at the end of the mod as one of the dev room NPCs. I might make a video about this in the future, but the reason I'm bringing this up now is I don't want it to seem like I'm judging the mod author prematurely because of their work on the Frontier. And honestly, I hope you guys can do the same. Sometimes mods are hated unfairly, but sometimes they're not. So when we take a look at this War Trash mod, let's try to give it a fair shot. So without further ado, let's not harass the mod author, and let's jump into the story of War Trash. Created by Josh Badwriter, yes, that's his actual username, War Trash released in February of 2014. And once again, as far as I can tell, this is his first mod ever. The story of the mod revolves around espionage, terrorists, and the fate of the entire Mojave Wasteland. Playing as the Courier, you're tasked by the NCR to infiltrate a group of rogue mercenaries known as War Trash. According to the description, the mod aims to be lore-friendly and hopes to provide a more critical lens to the NCR as a whole. Things won't be quite as black and white though, with many quests that might put into question your moral fortitude. There's also promised to be plenty of combat that offers a good challenge to seasoned players. However, apparently you won't be able to access the Long 15 from Lonesome Road, which is not a good sign. Another thing that worries me is that in this description, the player is described as the savior of the Mojave, a phrase that anyone who's played the Frontier will be sorely familiar with. I mean, I'm guilty of pulling this trope too in one of my earlier mods, but I've grown to hate everybody knowing who you are in the world of New Vegas, especially if you're playing a character that really hasn't done anything. Despite that little tidbit, the concept does seem fairly interesting. Infiltrating what is essentially a terrorist organization has so many rich role-playing opportunities that just get me excited. I'm reminded of Splinter Cell Double Agent with this concept. I'm a huge Splinter Cell fan. Essentially, the games had a very similar premise, where you are playing a man infiltrating a terrorist organization and you gotta work both for and against them at the same time. You'd have to balance trust between your handlers, the NSA, and the terrorists, John Brown's army. I didn't expect a similar feature in this mod to the same degree as Double Agent, but I hope they'll at least give you options to convey such struggles between maintaining your cover and doing what's right. Anyway, without further ado, let's find out for ourselves and jump into War Trash. Man, take a drink every time I say without further ado. I mean, fuck me. To start this mod, you've got to be on at least some good terms with the NCR. Or at least know how to hack the game and get inside the NCR Ranger safe house. It's here where you'll meet the quest giver, Graham Edmund. Edmund is the head of the most recently formed NCR intelligence agency known as the DAI. He's heard of your exploits, even if the only thing you've done in the game is get shot in the head, and he wants your help to deal with a new threat to the Mojave. There's a new gang of terrorists in town, and they're posing a serious threat to the NCR's operations. This gang is a group of rogue mercenaries known as War Trash. The gang is entirely made up from rogue mercenaries and rejected NCR and Legion members, which is weird. Not exactly the type of people you'd expect to play well together. Regardless, Edmund wants you, the player, to infiltrate this gang and find out what they're up to. Upon accepting this mission, should you choose to accept it, you'll be treated to a PowerPoint presentation that explains the major players in this plot and their backstories. For a first mod, this is a nice touch, and I do appreciate that. Through this PowerPoint, you'll learn that the group is led by an ex-NCR soldier named Zombie, with his second-in-command being an ex-Centurion named Octavius. You're then pointed to their suspected hideout, a vault located just outside of Vegas in the ruins of a town called Corn Creek. Yeah, that's right, we got ourselves a brand new town to explore just a few blocks outside of Westside, and hopefully there's no overriding issues when we get there. Upon arriving at the town, we find it absolutely infested with raiders known as the Desert Foxes, and unfortunately, when I played, most of them got stuck inside buildings. Once you kill everyone, the town itself is really quite empty. There are a few custom houses, but most of them don't offer too much. There's a clone of the Novak Motel, which is added pretty poorly, unfortunately. A doctor's shack where the doctor in question was really horrible. She started crying and looking at every patient in here individually. Apparently, she wasn't satisfied because she spat at me and then stormed out. Joke's on her, though. I have a fetish for women's spit.
What the?
A church that's honestly not bad, just a little empty. At least for now. There's also a couple of houses that don't really make a lot of sense to me.
Why is there 2 sinks in that bathroom?
One of which takes you to a fake vault that was designed to trap anyone who went inside. And there's a grocery store. You know, the one from Nipton. Pretty much copied, just item for item. However, instead of boxcars, we will find a ghoul living here that will trade with us. Of course, the real treasures we're looking for in this town lie directly under it. Heading into the sewers, we'll find the secret HQ of War Trash, Vault 50. Talking with the guard outside, who is named Grapes for some reason, we'll be invited inside to speak with their leader, Zombie, who is...
Banana?
Well, he certainly is a character. Zombie reminds me of Voss if Voss grew up hopelessly addicted to LOL random humor of the early internet. His voice acting, along with pretty much all of the VA in this mod really, is really good, but the writing already can be a bit odd.
You like that? I said ovaries instead of balls.
It was at this point in the mod that I noticed that you rarely had more than 1 or 2 dialogue options for most situations. That's not going to change too much for the main quest going forward, unfortunately. Regardless, in this conversational cutscene with Zombie, you'll be allowed to join the gang of War Trash if you prove yourself to him. To do that, you're going to have to kill the leader of the Desert Foxes, who is in a brewing plant on the other side of the map. I don't know, kind of seems out of sight, out of mind to me, but what do I know? Their leader is a man named Vimes, who is fat, apparently.
Oh, and he is fat.
Why you gotta be body shaming, Zombie?
So we head out to a soda factory just outside of Nipton, where we find off the rest of the Desert Foxes and get some lore on the factory, which belonged to a rightfully now bankrupt Ashen Brewing Company. And we also find out that Vimes isn't really that fat.
Can't you finally do something about how fat you are?
Heading back to Vault 50, I explored a bit to get the lore on the place. There are a few terminals that you can read that explain the experiment. Apparently the Vault was only given a bad reality TV shows to watch, and everyone got really, really stupid. I won't lie, some of these terminals did give me a bit of a chuckle, but I'm not really sure it really fits with Fallout, though. I don't think 50s culture would adopt anything that's akin to Jersey Shore or Llama Dynasty. I also took this opportunity to talk to some of the people around the Vault, and there's not too many people to talk to. One of the more prominent members of War Trash you'll meet is a doctor who apparently was one of the Talon Company mercs from Fallout 3, and gets really upset if you say something about his backstory not being too tragic. And there's also a chef who puts on the worst French accent I have ever heard.
You got a problem with that? Huh? You want me to cut you? You little bastard. I don't make fun of Croyer 6. More like Croyer 6.
He will also not shut up, and you have no option other than to be rude to him when he does that. Talking with Zombie will get our next task. Octavius, a man whose subtitles are never what he actually says, caught an intruder, and we're tasked with interrogating him. Now, this was a segment that had an opportunity to be interesting, as it's one of the first moments that you actually have to do something that's bad. You learn that this man, Ian Black, is not an NCR spy or anything like that. He's just a family guy. You can either kill him or fail the entire questline. What this sequence lacks is choice. There is no choice here. You either kill him or you go through this really linear sequence of dialogue. Honestly, this entire part was a missed opportunity and was made to make you feel bad. Except for the fact that the followers apparently really appreciate me killing this guy. I assume that was a bug. I don't know. That was really fucking funny. Anyway, after dealing with Ian, we talk to Zombie again and get our next task. This time, we're gonna be poisoning Freeside. That's right, poisoning Freeside. You team up with Brooklyn, the only girl in this gang, who is your biggest fan and regales you with all the things you've done, even if you haven't actually done them yet. You arrive in Freeside and murder all of the kings around the water pump, including the tapper. No option, no way around this. You take their clothes and disguise yourselves as kings and hand out poisoned water to the residents of Freeside. You do kind of have a choice here, as you can deny giving water to some people, but through my playings of it, it doesn't really change anything. In my playthrough, however, I gave everybody the water. Once you're done with that, it's time to head back to the vault, and Brooklyn seems oddly comfortable with having just poisoned innocent people.
Let's get out of here before they see us.
Yeah, there's totally
Want
not
to play
blood on the
Monopoly
ground.
when we get back?
No, why would I want... What? Anyway, after doing all of that, we head back to Zombie and we're formally inducted into the War Trash. With our cover officially set, we report to Edmund and are forced to listen to Brooklyn's tragic backstory from Brooklyn herself.
Sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you over my tragic past.
Her story is super dark, it comes out of nowhere, and the player pretty much has no option but to say, "Oh man, I'm so sorry that happened." Okay, let's talk about Brooklyn for a second. Her character is really well voice acted, but the writing is very, very overdramatic. Throughout the mod, she'll tell you her backstory in spurts, but the TLDR of it is basically that her parents were killed and she suffered sexual abuse from fiends, and her sister was killed and she had to bury her sister. There's a slight bit more nuance to it than that, but I'm not going to go over it in this video. I don't really think it's well handled. Its only existence is to make you emphasize with Brooklyn, but honestly, it makes this character's actions not make a lot of sense. Brooklyn is uncharacteristically naive. She seems to believe that Zombie is doing the right thing. You know, poisoning people. There's nothing wrong with that at all. She has this weird respect for Zombie. Of course, there's some doubt. But in this situation, I don't think there would be any doubt that Zombie is fucking evil. Brooklyn also has high reverence for the Courier and respects them as like this sort of mythical hero archetype. Brooklyn is a goody two-shoes that suffered from fiends. Why is she here? I don't understand. The mod seems to imply that Brooklyn is only here because she thinks that it's the ends justify the means, this is for the greater good, blah blah blah. It's stupid, I don't like it. Anyway, after talking with Brooklyn, I took this opportunity to try out some side quests. There are 3 of them that you can do, and they vary on how good they are. There's a quest where you have to find a missing child, which is probably one of the better ones. Taking place in Corn Creek entirely, you'll find a preacher from the Children of Adam for some reason. He kidnapped a kid and turned them into a feral ghoul that he keeps in the basement. You can confront him about this after putting the kid down, and then you can go ahead and lock the preacher inside the basement with the radioactive barrels. Honestly, it's a pretty rewarding sequence, and I enjoyed an actual sort of role-play scenario which this mod kind of strays from in its main quest. Another side quest you can do is basically a generic dungeon. You destroy this slaver's ring that's operating out of Westside. Why is there a slaver's ring in Westside? I have no idea, but here it is. The dungeon's fun enough, and the whole entire story of this dungeon is made to set up the next mod in this series, War Trash 2, which is a little odd considering you can skip this quest entirely. The third and final side quest you can do is defending Novak from the Legion. Basically, you fight waves of enemies, and then you're giving a moral decision about whether to keep defending Novak or to help defend Camp Forlorn Hope. I see what they were trying to do here. They were trying to do a thing with reputation. Who do you save? Do you save the NCR? Do you save Novak? It doesn't really work for me here, though. It feels a little too artificial. And it doesn't really affect anything overall. Despite this, I felt like the 3 side quests were okay. The last one I talked about was probably the weakest out of all of them, but there was still some enjoyment to be had. Anyway, let's head back to the main quest. We talk with Zombie again, and we get our next mission, which is to wipe out Freeside. Oh boy. That's right, folks, we're going to be killing everyone in Freeside now. With a gang of war trash mercenaries, first we wipe out Mick and Ralph's. No choice, have to do it. Then we wipe out the Mormon fort. No choice, have to do it. At this point, your NCR, Freeside, and followers' reputation are going to be in the absolute toilet, as you have to kill Mick and Ralph. You can sort of try and spare Julie, but due to a bug in my part, I had to kill her. It's just... why? Why did we have to do this? This is not good. Because there's no real option, you're forced to kill vanilla NPCs. No way around it. And why did we do this, you might ask? Well, we needed ammo and medical supplies. Also, Grapes died. Can't forget that. Heading back to the vault, we report to Edmund again via Octavius' radio, and almost get caught by Brooklyn. Instead of questioning us, though, Brooklyn continues on more of her tragic backstory and starts crying. Then the game will force you to bed because the story Brooklyn told you was just too sad. You're woken up the next morning by Brooklyn, who says that everybody is waiting for you by the main entrance. All 2 of them. They tell you to meet them at the Nipton Road rest stop. Once you get there, Zombie reveals that you'll be attacking and killing everyone at the Mojave Outpost, and you're giving the specific task of killing Ranger Jackson. Holy fuck. Why is there no way around this? This is an RPG! Anyway, after you perform that ruthless act of murder, you're tasked with taking the bridge just beyond the outpost. The bridge, of course, not existing in the real world, as well as the body of water that magically formed under it. This bridge is why you can't take the Long 15 anymore, because you have to take this gate, and the Long 15 teleporting gate was just kind of in the way. I mean, you could have at least moved it backwards so that you could still get there, but deleting it entirely is just... I'm sorry, that's a bad move. Once you take the bridge from the NCR, Zombie will celebrate a bit before being murked by Octavius. Apparently, Octavius was planning on using the victory to earn his way back into the Legion and assimilate the war trash with them. He also found out you were a spy from having used his radio to report to Edmund, and you're locked into the newly added Mojave Outpost jail. Wouldn't mind the jail so much if part of the building wasn't overlapping with the Brahmin pens, but that's neither here nor there. Brooklyn, however, is still on your side because she hasn't given you all of her horrific backstory yet. She gets your gear from Octavius to give to you later, but also lets you know that you have to find your own way out of here. As far as I can tell, the only way out is to use your speech skill on the guard Maya. I don't know, maybe you can pickpocket a key from her, but I never even bothered to try that. Either way, this is a bit of a weird situation, and I feel like if you don't have speech, you're probably fucked here. But I didn't test that, so hopefully I'm wrong. Also, you find a letter on Ranger Jackson's corpse that was written to him by his wife, and you read this because you must feel bad for things you are forced to do and have no choice. Anyway, this is the climax for the mod, so let's wrap this shit up. We escape the jail, we murder a shit ton of War Trash members, and we put a bullet in Octavius' brain before he blows up the bridge. Now, with that taken care of, we gotta deal with Brooklyn. Thankfully, we do get somewhat of a choice. We can either let her go, or we can turn her in for crimes, because despite her backstory, she's still a criminal, helping these criminals. In my playthrough, I decided to let her go. Now that War Trash has been finally taken care of for good, we go back to Edmund to report in. He's currently in Freeside coordinating a relief effort for all the damage we've caused. You tell the whole story to him, and he'll try to guilt trip you for doing exactly what you were told to do. And it's a bit irritating considering we had no choice but to do this at the risk of breaking this mod. After listening to Edmund lay the guilt trip on you, you're given one final task. You have to talk to the wife of Ian Black and tell her that her husband is dead. Wait, what's that? You don't remember who Ian Black is? Yeah, I didn't either. It's the guy you murdered. Remember him? That guy? All the way at the back at the beginning of the mod? Do you feel bad yet? You go to her house and you have the choice to either tell her what you did or be incredibly vague. Either way, they really try to lay on that guilt trip thick towards killing this guy. Might have worked if you made him more memorable or gave you a choice in the matter, but as it stands, it's just annoying. Again. Once you leave, the credits roll and the mod ends. But not without a Metal Gear Solid tier end sequence.
The right thing when it's supposed to make you feel like shit. Maybe we should have done more.
It really makes you
Yes, sir.
not think, but it really
Understand,
makes
sir.
you.
Oh my god, no, this is the Metal
I
Gear
was
Solid 2.
given a
and-
note by
Yup.
the courier about a man named Hale. Apparently he runs some kind of sex trade. Sir, I know this might sound unusual, but I request your permission to use the resources of the DAI to go after him. Yes, General, as you wish.
And that was War Trash, and frankly, I can see why some people didn't like it. This mod tries to be, or at least feels like, a combo of Metal Gear Solid and Spec Ops The Line. I mean, I'll start with what I think worked for the mod, and honestly, it's the voice acting. We've got a great cast here. Edmund, Brooklyn, Zombie, they all really have great voice acting. Even though the lines they said were sometimes a bit odd, they did their best to make it work. The voice actor for Zombie I even recognized from something. If anybody's played the game Cry of Fear, the voice actor for Zombie actually plays Simon, the main protagonist of that game. As for gameplay, there are a few good moments when it comes to combat sequences. Specifically, I thought the Ashen Bruin Company dungeon, the West Side Slavers hideout, and the finale were alright. The factory being one of the better fight sequences, although it being where it was a bit odd. I did like how the mod started too. The intro cutscene added some really nice flair. And it was scripted pretty well too for a first-time mod. There were also a few side quests that I think were okay. Mainly just that one that takes place in Corn Creek, but that's about it. The other ones are just kind of meh to me. The one that takes place in Westside is an okay dungeon, but it doesn't make a lot of sense as to why it's there, and there's not really much of a roleplay opportunity there either, so... Unfortunately, that's the only good things I have to say about this mod. When it comes to everything else, that's where I have some problems. So here's the most egregious issue for me. There's no game. Or at the very least, this barely qualifies as one. How many of you play Fallout New Vegas just for the combat? I'm gonna go ahead and assume probably not many, unless you're playing with a shit ton of mods. War Trash does combat okay, but that's the only part of this mod that really is, well, gameplay. Dialogue is so limited, it might as well not even be an option to pick it. The quests don't really matter because they don't feel like you're making an impact or it has any significant choice. There is no role-playing, there is no choice, there is no player agency. It feels like I'm just along for the ride here, being forced to say and do things that I probably normally wouldn't do at the risk of playing this mod. There's no variety here. It's only simplicity, and because of that, the mod suffers greatly. Now that's a really big problem. It'd be less of a problem if the story was really good, but that's just it. It really isn't. I feel like a lot of the problems in this mod could have been solved by just completely wiping out Vault 50 from the beginning. The Courier didn't really even need to get involved with this. The NCR already knew where they were hiding out as their main base. They could have just gone in and just wiped them all out right then and there. I do think one of the characters mentioned that the War Trash has a bunch of sleeper cells that would activate if their main base went offline, but we never really find out anything about these sleeper cells and wipe out War Trash anyway, so I think that was a lie and none of this really mattered. So we could have saved a lot of time by just murdering everybody and not listening to Graham Edmund. So, yeah, he's basically just an idiot and that's a giant plot hole for this mod. We're approached with really serious subject matter in some spots of the mod, that's highly contrasted with goofy humor that sometimes can come out of nowhere. The mod is overdramatic and takes itself a little too seriously, and when it tries to joke around, it also feels off. Granted, I did laugh at it a bit because there are some lines that are kind of funny, but I think the mod would have worked a lot better if it leaned more into the humor and less into the overdramatic. Characters are also all over the place. I don't even know how to describe Brooklyn. She's got a tragic past, she's incredibly naive, and she wants to do the right thing. But on top of that, she also thinks Zombie is a good guy? Zombie, who is a LOL so random quirky murderer who has you poison an entire city. I mean, at least Brooklyn is developed, but It doesn't make sense. And the other characters, well, they exist, but they don't really get a chance to flourish. Zombie just seems kind of like a one-note bad guy, and so is Octavius. We don't really get to learn a lot about who they really are. We don't get to have deep conversations with them. Zombie is just LOL so random I'm evil, while Octavius is just kind of a generic evil guy. If you wanted to make them more morally gray, establish their characters a bit. What exactly makes them morally gray? To me, it just looks like they're just killing people from association. There's no real building of character here. There's also Edmund, who also feels a bit one note as well. Again, stellar voice acting, but he just seems remarkably naive, and that's all there is to his character. If you asked me one thing about him, I'd probably just say a naive NCR guy, and well, that's about it. My point is, though, just nobody really has time to flourish, and there's nothing really interesting done with these characters. My final gripe with all of this is just I had problems with the general interior and exterior design. Besides things like floating buildings and bits of interiors that let me peer into the void, a lot of it lacked flavor. Most of the interiors are custom, which I'll give props to, but lack proper lighting. I think the factory and West Side Slaver buildings are well structured, but there's no lights besides barrel fires. It feels vastly unfinished. And the vault? Oh man, the vault. The vault had to have been the worst interior for me by far. The vault essentially acts as the central hub for most of this mod, and it feels just so poorly put together. Not only is the layout a bit wonky, it feels small when it's supposed to be kind of big, and there's just not much in there to look at. Not to mention there's a lot of misaligned walls and holes that you can use to peer outside the voids. And once again, there is no lighting besides barrel fires. It is just not great. Overall, this mod hurts me a lot because it is a huge missed opportunity for me. Imagine all the things we could have done with this concept in the new Vegas engine. For example, maybe we could have had chances to sabotage the plans of War Trash along the way. Like maybe you had an option to tamper with the poison you're giving to the people in Freeside to make it less potent or not kill people. Or maybe you had a chance to sneak into forbidden areas of the vault to gather intel and try to be sneaky and not get caught. Maybe even planting a bug in their communications. And with Ian, the man you're supposed to kill, a lot could have been done there too. You could have killed him, you could have helped him escape, you could have convinced War Trash to let him go, you could have faked his death. There's just so many opportunities with that, and it was just too simple for its own good. This mod has so much promise, it just fails to deliver for me. That's not why people hate this mod, though. The things you're forced to do can ultimately break and ruin your save's reputation. Mick and Ralph, they're now dead, meaning you can never get their services again and Freeside will hate you. And of course you can attempt to negate this with the Garrett twins, but that hole is still there. And the old Mormon fort, that's just dead now. And if you didn't recruit Arcade, he's dead too. Even if you did though, I mean, he's probably not gonna want to travel with you after killing Farkas, so Jesus. Don't even get me started on the Mojave Outpost too. Didn't recruit Cass? Well, she's dead now. Good luck with that. Everybody at the Mojave Outpost didn't do their quests? Well, too bad, you're never doing them, because now everyone's dead. The Long 15, gone. Gotta disable the mod to play that. Sorry guys, tough luck. Granted, it's a small cell, but still, why? Why take that ability out? You could have at least moved the gate somewhere. I was a bit more harsh on this mod, and I probably shouldn't have been. It was somebody's first mod, and clearly there was some passion here. I'm not trying to discount them. Like a lot of mods, it has its good parts, and it has its bad parts. Just some are a bit more noticeable than others. The creator of this mod, Joshua Badrider, would eventually go to work on the Frontier. And while I do believe they definitely improved on their Gek work, the writing still leaves a bit to be desired, especially when it comes to how linear a lot of the things in the Frontier were. I'm noticing a lot of similarities between War Trash's linearity and some of the Frontier's linearity. I will admit that it is an improvement, and it's always great to see mod authors improve, but this sort of linearity is not really what a lot of Fallout players really want. Once again, I don't think this mod deserves to be hated, but I don't think it's that good either. I honestly believe that despite all the flaws of Honest Hearts Reborn, I think I like that a lot better than War Trash. At the very least, Honest Hearts Reborn did have some player agency. It was just a little bit bold on exactly what that was. I'm going to rate this mod a 3 out of 10. Closer to a 2 than a 4. Thanks for watching, everybody, and a big thanks to all of my supporters on Patreon, and a big thanks to the huge boost in subscribers that I got from my last video. You definitely inspired me to make more videos like this, and I hope to actually cover some mods that people like in the future. Hopefully. Maybe I'll talk about a few of my own mods as well, and shit on a lot of the really bad ones that I've done myself, just so it doesn't seem like I am being a complete egotistical asshole. Because, damn, I have made some pretty bad mods, I'm not gonna lie, and it's pretty fun to kind of shit on some of the things I've done in the past. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me, and make sure to stay tuned for next time when I cover the sequel to this mod. That's right, the sequel, War Trash 2, Electric Boogaloo. See you then.